The Golden Stallion is here, and it is time. In fact, speaking of time, it's just about 2 weeks until I get to sit down in the theater with the lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy. I wish there's some other people I wish were there too, but anyway, it's going to be her and I, and we will be sitting down watching Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. I am so excited for this. I can't believe it's only a couple weeks away. It really, and it's hard to believe that it's only been, it's barely been a year since the last Star Wars movie was in theaters. I shouldn't say barely. Barely is the accurate term. But I say that because it feels like it's been forever. I don't understand. It's still, maybe because I just immerse myself so much in Star Wars and all the little news, that it still feels like back, during the prequel days. Of course, I was born in 81, so I didn't get to totally experience the original trilogy in theaters or anything, because Return of the Jedi came out in 83. But, I got to experience it on VHS, and oh boy, did I experience it on VHS. Those tapes were warping. I watched that shit so much. But I was totally there for the prequels, and, you had to wait 3 years in between each one of those, and it was crazy waiting all of that time. And it's still, I gotta admit, even though I know it's just a year, it feels like, maybe it's just because I just do so damn much in a year, I don't know, but it feels like it's still that 3-year time frame. But whatever, very exciting that The Last Jedi is coming up. This is going to be a bit of a crux, in my opinion, for Star Wars in general. And we've been talking about this. Of course, this is your Sovereign Tech Patreon only Star Wars update, which we do one every month. We also, of course, do a Star Trek update. We do, the relationship rhombus. There's little monthly shows, do the live, hangout Q&A and everything. Little monthly shows that I like to make available to you. And it gives me the opportunity to not have to squeeze this stuff into a Sovereign Tech Prime episode, because it's already tough enough getting everything into a Sovereign Tech Prime episode. It's practically impossible, frankly. But we're getting close with Patreon. We're getting closer to that $500 a month range, and then I can do 2 episodes of Sovereign Tech every single week, and then that won't be so much of a problem. But not that you're going to lose any of the Patreon content because of that. Anyway, Last Jedi is going to be a bit of a crux, because as we've been talking about on the Star Wars update over the past few months, I feel like the situation in the Star Wars universe, the larger Star Wars universe, has been getting grimmer, much more grim over time. Still very concerned about what's going on with the Han Solo movie. Of course, it's just called Solo now. We know that. Very concerned about, we don't know what's going on with Episode 9. J.J. Abrams is coming in, so you assume it's going to be okay, but you never know. Some good news has come out. Of course, just some quick news. It has been announced about 2 weeks ago, and of course I'm recording this on November 29th, 2017. It had been announced a couple weeks ago that, first off, Rian Johnson, who wrote and directed The Last Jedi, which, like I said, I'm excited for. And if it's not good, Star Wars, in my opinion, is really screwed if somehow this movie sucks, but I don't think it's going to. Anyway, but it's been announced that he is being given an entire trilogy. And, I don't mean episode, 10, 11, or 12. This is some kind of other trilogy. We don't exactly know what it's going to be about, but he has been given, creative direction all the way around with an entire new Star Wars trilogy, which that's pretty exciting, that kind of news in itself. And let's touch on that for a minute. It seemed pretty clear at just about any conference, any interview that I've seen or something, where Kathleen Kennedy was talking about Rian Johnson. She just loves this guy. Now, how much in charge Kathleen Kennedy is of Lucasfilm right now and its creative direction, that's another, question entirely. But, how much is Bob Iger, kind of putting his finger in the pies, we don't know. But anyway, there seems to be clear confidence in what Rian Johnson's doing, and that's part of the reason I think The Last Jedi is going to be huge. I think they know they have an absolute winner on their hands, and that this is going to be a movie. The Last Jedi, particularly, is going to be a movie that people are going to be talking about for a good long while. Maybe just like people talked about The Empire Strikes Back, back in 1980 for a good long while. Of course, in that case, it was 3 years. In this case, we won't have Episode 9 until 2019, right? Yeah, not 2020. So anyway, really, really exciting stuff. Of course, we've had so many announcements as far as new movies go. There's the Obi-Wan film. Just a bunch of stuff, all of which is really cool. So anyway, Rian Johnson, though, with his new trilogy, I'm starting to feel like I really felt that more particularly it should, who's taken over the mantle of George Lucas, right? I mean, I think Kathleen Kennedy, I think she's brilliant. I think she's very business savvy and all that. I don't know necessarily that she's like any kind of, creative genius or something. But Rian Johnson obviously is. And while at first I would say that kind of the real replacement for more of the story direction of, of Star Wars, at first, I was thinking, okay, it's going to be Dave Filoni, of course, who, worked directly with George Lucas, which one can't really say of Rian Johnson, that he worked with him on Clone Wars and everything. And of course, then, had serious control over Star Wars, or, was the creator and had such, direct control over where Star Wars Rebels would go, which we'll talk about kind of the end of season 4 of Star Wars Rebels here as well, because that also happened within the month of November. Not the end of the 4th season, but kind of the mid-season break, and I thought it hit a high note, so we'll talk about that. But anyway, maybe Rian Johnson is being given kind of the reins of Star Wars, or seeing what he can do with a new trilogy. I mean, this is a long-term play, because I think everything going on in Star Wars is very much a long-term play, like a super long-term play. And that's good. That's good. Because Lucasfilm really, Disney is a massive company. Lucasfilm really can be its own company within that. There's no problem. Disney can just kind of be the parent company, as it were. And Lucasfilm just has so much going for it. Star Wars alone can really be its own property, especially the way that Lucasfilm has been doing things. And when we start to talk about, there's a few comic book series I want to review, or more storylines, I guess I should say, that I want to review a little later on in this episode. And some of that kind of highlighted the interesting game that I think Disney / Lucasfilm is playing with timing, with releases of things, and how they're presenting things overall, with especially the broader canon, when you get into the comic books and novels and all of that. So anyway, yeah, I mean, it's looking like maybe they're going to hand over, the feathered cap of George Lucas or the crown, and they're going to give it to Rian Johnson instead of Dave Filoni. I could see that, or maybe it'll be a co-thing. I don't know. Maybe Dave Filoni will do his own stuff, and delve more into the animated realm, or maybe into the TV realm, because that's another thing that was announced, was that there's going to be a full-on live-action TV show. We know practically nothing about this. Of course, everybody's hoping or just about everybody I've heard, myself included, is hoping that it's going to be a Knights of the Old Republic, TV series, but we don't know. We're not really sure where that's actually going to take place, but that's exciting news as well. And of course, Disney has their streaming service, which I think is going to be starting in 2019. Obviously, Star Wars is going to be a major part of that, though really I still feel, and I've said this before, I still feel that Star Wars should just have its own streaming service, just like there's Stargate Command for Stargate, where it's all it is a streaming service for Stargate, and they're going to have the new show Stargate Origins on and everything. Just do that for Star Wars, and hell, you could do it for Star Trek too while you're at it. But whatever, I'm just saying Star Wars has enough, and especially in the future, it's really going to have enough. But speaking of the Old Republic, so I actually just recently, just came in the mail today. I got a book called Star Wars Super Graphic, A Visual Guide to a Galaxy Far, Far Away by Tim Long. Now, Tim Long has done a few of these super graphic books. They're not unique to Star Wars. Even though Star Wars is such a visual medium, it actually works particularly well, for Star Wars. And this is a beautiful book, and kind of a rare, and I'll give a quick review here as we're going through this entire Star Wars update. We're going to be reviewing a lot. Now, this super graphic book is kind of unique in that it really, it's, all it is are like these kind of charts and a lot of these things that you'd sort of see on the internet that are a lot of fun. And there's some really cool shit in it. But here's what's interesting about it. So, for one example, you have this breakdown of all the different lightsabers and all that's in it. But then at the same time, and actually there's a little segment where a page, and these are all blown up graphics that you could easily scan and just have, as you scroll down a web page or something, but it's within a book. But there's where they have this graphic of a stormtrooper belt, their utility belt, and it tells you everything that's within this utility belt. Now, understand, this is a canon book, this is an official book, but then also they'll give you So there's the mixture of what's in the fiction, but then there's a lot of nonfiction too. Like the very first page is actually a breakdown of how many words are in each opening crawl and gives you a breakdown overall of the opening crawls, from a, nonfiction perspective, which is kind of cool. Probably one of the more, and there's a lot of little nifty charts in here that actually give some very interesting information that I don't think you really get anywhere else. And this book is cheap. It's like $12. It's not, and it's a very, I think it's a very premium, nice quality book. Has, let's see, what we got a page count here. It has about 200 pages to it. So, it's fair sized. Granted, like every chart, or every graphic takes up either one entire page or 2 pages. But anyway, there's one particularly on page 24 that I found interesting because this is kind of confirmation of something that I think has been terribly confusing ever since the prequel era. And no, I'm not talking about midichlorians. I love midichlorians. But it's History of Government in the Galaxy. And all it is, it's this giant, looks like a, sunbow or like a rainbow of sorts, but, with only a few colors in it. And the bulk of it, it's covering a little over 1,000 years. Okay. And it's just this huge semicircle. And the bulk of it is, of course, the time of the Galactic Republic, which it very clearly says around 1,000 years. Okay. That it existed before A New Hope started. That's how long the Republic had been around. Now, it calls it the Galactic Republic, and then before the Galactic Republic, there's a little segment in yellow that's kind of pointing down, inferring that there's a very long span of time before that. There is what's called the Old Republic. Now, normally you would say, well, wait a minute, in A New Hope, Obi-Wan Kenobi is talking about the Old Republic, like that he served the Old Republic. But if it's the Galactic Republic and that went for 1,000 years and then there's another republic before that called the Old Republic, what the fuck's going on here, right? And in the graphic, within this semicircle graphic in this book, it says very clearly, within the Galactic Republic, which is the bulk of the time that it covers, it says, during the Galactic Empire, the Galactic Republic was also sometimes known as the Old Republic. So they're kind of solving that. And this is something, a lot of this retroactive stuff has been going on with Star Wars for a little while. Like, is it the Clone Wars? Why call it the Clone Wars? There's really only one war. Or is it called the Clone War? And sometimes, you'll hear Yoda call it the Clone War instead of Clone Wars. It's just confusing shit. I remember the first time, I think it was in episode 2, where at the time, Chancellor Palpatine very clearly says that, the Republic had stood for 1,000 years. I'm like, wait a minute, I thought it stood for like tens of thousands of years. Like this doesn't make any fucking sense. Of course, at the time you had the, kind of the original EU, expanded universe. So now here it is, and I know it had kind of been clarified before, and I kind of knew what it was saying, but here it is in a canon context. That's the deal. When you're talking about like the Galactic Republic, that's only been around for 1,000 years, but then before that there was some kind of giant Old Republic, which again, if we're lucky, maybe the TV show that we mentioned, the live action TV show, will cover. I don't care if an animated show does it either, but I think doing something, as much as I hate Game of Thrones, doing something Game of Thrones style with Star Wars, oh, that would be very, very interesting with lightsabers and the whole business. I don't think we'll end up with, meeting characters like Ulic Qel-Droma or anything like that, or Nomi Sunrider from, of course, people may remember the Tales of the Jedi series, which is a phenomenal comic book series from Dark Horse back with the old expanded universe. But I think that would be a great time. Now, I do just want to point out, and we'll get to it later, the centerpiece of this Star Wars update is definitely going to be the Legends of Luke Skywalker, which is part of the Journey to the Last Jedi collection of media being released. We will get to that later. I have some problems with it, some of which I hinted at the November live Hangout Q&A. But regardless, let's shake it up. Let's talk about Rebels, because this is, talk about some really, really good news. Quick, actually, speaking of Journey to the Last Jedi, I'm a little peeved. Again, this is something that's been going on with Star Wars for a while. I'm kind of hoping after episode 8 it stops, because they're trying to keep all these secrets. Who are Rey's parents? Blah, blah, blah. All this, what is going on with Luke Skywalker? Yada, yada, yada. And of course, we'll touch on that a little bit more later. But I'm annoyed that we can't get the fucking, like I said, I've said this many times. Soundtracks, including for Star Wars, used to come out like a month in advance from when the movie was supposed to come out. No, instead the soundtrack's going to come out on December 15th, which I'm actually, and a lot of other people are seeing the movie on December 14th, kind of the day previous, okay, because of, varying rules with theaters that you can pull that off. So that sucks, okay, that we won't get the soundtrack until after I see the movie, because it's one of my favorite things to do is to listen to the soundtrack before I go see the movie, get the purity of the soundtrack, and then kind of look for the hints of it as I watch the film. It really makes for a much richer experience for me. And actually, I think it kind of helped me survive Blade Runner 2049, because I know for some people, and I recognize it in theaters, like if the soundtrack came off awfully strange with that, but when you listen to it raw, it was way more enjoyable. So anyway, it kind of sucks that I won't get that, but also I pre-ordered the visual guide for speaking of a couple other books. I pre-ordered the visual guide for The Last Jedi, and I pre-ordered the the visual guide and the cross sections in the visual dictionary, like the both of those, the visual guide and the cross sections. I ordered both of those. Those also don't come out till the fucking 15th. Now I'm kind of also used to reading at least some kind of books that talk about something to a degree of depth that's going to happen in the Star Wars movie I'm about to watch. Now I did get, of course, and I think I reviewed this in the last Star Wars update, I did get absolutely everything you need to know about Star Wars, which was also released as part of the Journey to the Last Jedi, and had some interesting tidbits about Snoke, Supreme Leader Snoke of the First Order and some other things. But yeah, it kind of sucks. Like the day after, I'm just going to have to I guess it's going to extend my Star Wars enjoying experience over a day, at least. But yeah, whatever. So anyway, but I will also be reviewing those books. I probably won't review the books I'm sure I'll mention them, but I won't review them in the Sovereign Tech Prime episode where I do the full review of The Last Jedi. But for December's Star Wars update, which will be more towards the end of the month, I will review those books as well. As far as the nonfiction and as far as like the kind of reference books and reference guides and all that Lucasfilm has been putting out since the rebooted canon, they've been great. Like I really don't have much in the way of complaints of any of them, except for the Star Wars Rebels visual dictionaries or visual guides. They're not really like giving you a breakdown of what makes up the Ghost and what makes up, all the different ships and everything. It was definitely geared towards kids. So those are I have them, but there's two of them, and they haven't released one for season 3 or season 4. And I would really love one for season 4, particularly. It's been pretty annoying, or those are annoying, but otherwise all the reference guides have been great. Just really, really high end productions. Of course they had been before Disney took over, but whatever, they're good now. So anyway, speaking of Rebels season 4, let's talk about it. We got the, kind of first half, as it were, of season 4 of Rebels, and some of the episodes we reviewed, the first two-parters, I believe it was. Actually, no, I think we might have reviewed the first 6 episodes of season 4 of Rebels in the last Star Wars update that we did for Patreon for Sovereign Tech. And the last few episodes, kind of the second half of the first half of the season 4, I know it's all getting very confusing, were pretty good too. Like I enjoyed them, especially the kind of the mid-season finale, that being Rebel Assault. I thought was incredible. Everything that they were playing off. They have been doing such a phenomenal job. It's amazing how quickly we love the character of Hera. I always enjoyed her anyway, and you can go back to previous Star Wars updates where I talk about that. But like they're really playing that character up, and they're giving her some very special places of honor. In fact, we'll be talking about that a little bit more, because we also will review the kind of the second volume of Forces of Destiny, the series of animated shorts that Disney has been making. So anyway, the second half of Star Wars Rebels season 4, they're just, they're upping the ante on everything. The action is tremendous. You're getting a lot of starfighter battles, which matter. I really don't have any complaints with where they're going with this show. My only complaint is that I wish that they were going in this direction, that they were taking it this seriously. beforehand, like way ahead of now. Like why did we have to wait until season 4 for this show to really kind of find its focus? And that seems to be what's going on with Rebels now. Is now it has absolute focus, probably because, in fact, it kind of reminds me of Babylon 5 season 4, where in season 4 of Babylon 5, so J. Michael Straczynski, the writer and creator, he didn't know if he'd get a season 5, and so he had to take the two main storylines which he had left for the 5-year run of the show, and those storylines being the Shadow War and then the Earth Alliance Civil War, and he had to combine them into season 4. And so many people remember like season 4 of Babylon 5 as just being like this intense, nonstop, holy shit, that was incredible. And it was because there was so much focus, because you couldn't waste a moment. Every moment had to be some kind of action, had to be something going on. And I think that season 4 of Rebels is very much having to go through the same thing. I don't know what timetable that Dave Filoni originally had in mind for the show, but it's working, and we're getting, we're definitely feeling the closeness to Rogue One, to the movie Rogue One, which is really cool. So yeah, no real complaints, no major reviews. Just Rebel Assault was such a cool episode, and it was cool that it had that name too. Like I got to give credit, to that name. I think that calling it Rebel Assault, which was one of my Rebel Assault 2 particularly, there was 2 games that came out in the 90s that were very popular. They were kind of this mixture of, well, Rebel Assault 1 didn't have this, but Rebel Assault 2 had. It was a mixture of full motion video and kind of on the rails, what they call on the rails gameplay. I love Rebel Assault 2. I love the story. I love the action. I love the full motion video. I love everything about it. I think it's a ton of fun. I would be totally on board with the Rebel Assault 3 at some point in the future. In fact, for PlayStation, I remember it was like one of the first games I ever got for PlayStation, even though I did have it for PC as well. And there was a lot of fun little cheat codes you could put in the PC version. But anyway, it was cool to call it Rebel Assault. I thought that was a nice little homage. And of course, we got a lot of action in season 4 of Rebels. Well, a couple things. One is we got to see a lot of the TIE Defender, which of course comes from TIE Fighter, which is, there's a part of me that is just getting closer and closer to saying that TIE Fighter, it's a game, but let's call it software. It only came out for PC, or what I'm going to call TIE Fighter boxes from now on. That TIE Fighter is just like one of the single most important pieces of software ever developed for a computer. Like when you start talking about, the spreadsheet, the word processor, Microsoft Windows and all this other stuff, I think in a top 10 list of most important pieces of software ever made for computers, I think TIE Fighter deserves to be there, and it deserves to be pretty fucking high on that list, maybe even at the top. I'm not even like, I'm half kidding. That game, especially after the bullshit that's been going on with Battlefront 2, which we've talked about in Somertech Prime episodes, that game, like its importance and just how goddamn good it is and still is really, really coming to fore even more now. Frankly, I wouldn't mind if, especially now that we have the reintroduction of the TIE Defender in Rebel Seasons 4, or really in Season 3 they were showing it off, but I wouldn't mind if they could do just do an HD remaster of TIE Fighter, for modern consoles and modern systems and everything. And I think that would just be fine and dandy. And let's make all, what was it? Marquette Steele? Was that the character that you played as in TIE Fighter? Make it canon. Let's do it. And all the, the prophets of the dark side and everything that you get to work with within the game. Let's fucking make it canon. Let's make it the real deal. I would love that if they did that. I think that would be pretty awesome. So anyway, Thrawn, of course, comes back in a big way, particularly in the later half of the first half of Rebels Season 4. Great to see Thrawn. Thrawn is firing on all thrusters, in my opinion. Probably, it's always tough to say this sort of thing, but if not my favorite Star Wars character, certainly in my top 3. Like right up there with Princess Leia and whoever else. Thrawn is so cool. And we now know there was actually, and I guess nobody noticed this, but there was an interview like a year ago with Dave Filoni where he admitted that Thrawn would live past the events of A New Hope. And we don't know anything beyond that, but that was, and I've talked about this in previous Star Wars updates. I was very concerned that they were going to kill off Thrawn, and that would have been just such a fucking waste. That was a mistake, in my opinion, that the expanded universe made. In fact, they tried to make up for it with the little Hand of Thrawn duology that Timothy Zahn wrote. I think was that in the aughts or maybe late 90s. Because Thrawn was such a popular character. Like, Disney can really set this right and just leave Thrawn alive. Make him very, very much alive, and hell, make him alive all the way into, into episode 8 and 9, for fuck's sake. Like, go right ahead. So, I mean, we'll see on that, but at least now we know Thrawn is not going to die at the end. I mean, it's, this shouldn't be a spoiler alert. There's going to be spoiler alerts across the board here, folks, if you haven't read or consumed any of this material, watched, whatever. But yeah, it's good to know that he's going to survive all this, because that's the last thing I needed. I mean, when Filoni announced that Thrawn would be coming back in season 3, I mean, that was such a boon. That was so huge. It really enlivened the show and gave it a lot of depth and meaning and importance. Not that it didn't have it before, but just took it to the next level. And to just kill him off, on this show and make it not such a big deal, especially when oftentimes we get limited time with the character. Oh, that would have been a fucking waste. So good for them for not wasting any real time with that. So Thrawn has been really cool. Now, we did get a lot of introduction to the Lothwolves. I think that's how we would say it, right? The Lothwolves instead of the Lothcats, like the white Lothcat. Follow the white Lothcat, very Alice in Wonderland. That should be disturbing, but whatever. I don't expect people to get that. But now you have like these Lothwolves, and I don't know. I know Filoni's got a thing for wolves. I don't mind it. It's fine. It's just they really got to pay off this tease with these Lothwolves and kind of explain what's happening there. Because even on a cool factor, I don't think they're as cool as is it the Vulpex? Is that what they said? Those crystal wolves that you see in the trailers for The Last Jedi on was it on Cantobite or whatever on that planet? Well, Cantobite's like the casino more, right? But a crate, that's that crate, right? That's the name of the planet or whatever. Anyway, the Vulpex, like those look awesome. The Lothwolves, I'm not entirely sold. I don't know. It's coming off all is very weird. And fortunately, like I said, it does seem like Rebels Season 4 has a lot of focus going for it. So hopefully Filoni will give us some kind of answers on all that. And of course, we're all hoping to see Ahsoka come back, for this action. So, and people are wondering who's going to survive all this. Are characters going to end up dying from Star Wars Rebels? Is Kanan Jarrus going to die? Is Ezra Bridger going to make it through? I have to believe Ezra is going to make it. Sabine going to make it? Who's going to survive all this? Well, we do have one answer. So Rebels Season 4, so far, so good. It's doing great. It's a nice send-off season, in my opinion, and very much mimicking what the later seasons of Clone Wars were going through, where suddenly Clone Wars really found its footing towards the end, and then you just kept wanting more. And I think we're going to be feeling the same way, is that we just want more Rebels. Well, you can kind of get that, because one character that we now know is actually going to survive, at least to the point of Return of the Jedi, is the character of Hera Syndulla, who becomes a general. We get the moment in season 4 so far of Rebels where she gets her promotion to general. Of course, we knew she would be, or we had found out in Rogue One, because you overhear on Yavin Base where somebody says General Syndulla report to whatever. And we're like, well, is that her dad Cham? Like who's General Syndulla? And of course, it was confirmed that it was Hera. That was General Hera Syndulla. And she, so General Syndulla happens to be throughout October and into parts of November. There was the second volume of the Forces of Destiny series, which I reviewed the first volume previously, which was 10, 11 episodes, whatever. They're just these 2.5 minute or so, or 3 minute animated shorts where sometimes they get like Daisy Ridley will actually voice Rey. They'll get voice actors that were involved with Clone Wars or whatever's relevant, whoever they can try and get. They don't always get all the big names. There's one in particular with Hera Syndulla that has Han Solo in it and Princess Leia. Obviously, they did not get Harrison Ford to voice Han Solo, but the person they got to was very passable. But there was, in fact, it was a funny one. So the second volume, you get an episode. I mean, some of these episodes are really cool. There's an episode where Jyn Erso and Sabine Wren, kind of meet up. That was really cool. You get some great action or some really cool. Well, all right, I'm going to save it. I want to talk about the one of the main ones, which is the one with Han Solo in it, and it's called An Imperial Feast. I think it's the 16th episode of. Well, I guess they're calling it season 1, but in many ways they're volume 2. They did like this full volume 1 and volume 2 releases, which were like these 2 half-hour episodes, which started off with a little custom narration by Maz Kanata, who of course does like the little opening narration for each little episode, but she did something where she's like out camping, I'm guessing on Tokodana or something, on her planet. But anyway, so you have, so this is all season 1, but they did kind of make it into 2 volumes, 2 full on sort of episodes that you could watch. And that's a great way to consume it. And you can find them on YouTube, on the Disney YouTube channel, not on the Star Wars YouTube channel. But anyway, so An Imperial Feast, which is part of volume 2, this was pretty funny. Again, Leia's in it, Han's in it, and they bring up the point that I've brought up countless times anytime I've talked about Star Wars. And of course, because what's the first thing that people ask you when you talk about Star Wars? They say, hey, what's your favorite Star Wars movie? Mine is Return of the Jedi, and really has been for, I don't know, about as far back as I can remember. I mean, I get the arguments for Empire Strikes Back, believe me, but I just think Return of the Jedi is awesome. And one of the complaints against Return of the Jedi, why it's not the favorite for other people, is the Ewoks. Oh, they're cute and cuddly. Oh, it's a marketing thing. Yeah, it's definitely a marketing thing. But the cute and cuddly part, I think you're dead wrong if that's some kind of complaint. These are these are creatures that eat humans. They were about to eat Han Solo. Now, in the beginning, spoiler alerts, in the beginning of An Imperial Feast of, Forces of Destiny, there's a point where the Ewoks are putting the stormtroopers that they've captured, after the Battle of Endor. It takes place after Return of the Jedi. They're putting the stormtroopers like over an open fire. They're going to eat the stormtroopers. And of course, Leia tries to put a stop to it and all that. And Han has to help out. And there's a point where Han has to go interact with General Syndulla, with Hera. And so it was really cool. I mean, first off, it's very rare that we get any like post Return of the Jedi, pre-Force Awakens kind of content. So that was nice in and of itself. And again, folks, this is canon. Understand that all these little cartoons are canon. And it was just so great, though, to see Hera. And it was like, oh, awesome. Okay, so she survives all this business. We could end up seeing Hera in episode 8. I mean, for all intents and purposes, or episode 9. Awesome. That was really cool. So it's a fun little story, but I love the fact that they touched on that, these Ewoks are fucking vicious, and they'll eat Imperials. They'll eat whatever they want. And so it was good to get that recognition that was going on, that these are not just cute and cuddly creatures. So, kudos to Lucasfilm for putting that together. Then there was another one that was really cool where you ended up with another story between Yoda, Ahsoka, and Anakin Skywalker. And of course, Matt Lanter was there to voice Anakin Skywalker, and obviously Ashley Eckstein is voicing Ahsoka. And it was really cool. It was showing Ahsoka learning how to use the twin lightsabers that she's become so known for. And it was really cool to learn, what's the idea behind that? And, how exactly does that work? What's the purpose for it? And having her versus Yoda, which is what you get in the episode, again, inside of like 3 minutes, was actually pretty fucking epic and pretty cool. Like I really enjoyed that. The other ones that they did, there were plenty where there were starfighter battles, which this is the thing. This is a point that I want to bring up with Forces of Destiny, and I want to bring up with Star Wars Rebels overall as well. And that is, and maybe somebody finally told, and maybe they had to experiment to really like cement this point and to really, and for Lucasfilm to really understand this point. Okay. That is like what makes Star Wars is wars in the stars. What I mean by that, I'm not just saying that to be kind of kitschy. What I mean by that is you need starfighter battles. That's what's really exciting about Star Wars. And look, it is. I mean, what's been, exciting outside of lightsabers, and the Force, what's been exciting Star Wars fans forever is flying around the Millennium Falcon, flying around an X-Wing, flying around a TIE fighter, whatever it ends up happening to be. That's what you think of really when you think of Star Wars. And I think that the first volume of Forces of Destiny, I think a lot of people felt it was really boring because, and I think a lot of people felt that a lot of aspects of other things that were done, especially during the prequel era, were kind of boring because there weren't those grand giant starfighter battles. or they didn't have to be that huge, but there weren't like where it was very Starfighter centric, battles going on. And in Volume 2 of Forces of Destiny, they really solved that. In fact, there's the episode with Padme, which is really cool because you see her with an N1 Naboo starfighter, and it's all chrome, right? Because, it represents that she's royalty or a politician of some kind, whatever. And I mean, that was a lot of fun, to see her going through kind of starfighter training and everything. But to finally for them to get it, because I mean, that was my first thought when I watched the first few episodes of Forces of Destiny. I was like, they got to know, like, you can't just make the stuff. You got to give us starfighter battles or something if you want to get people excited. And in Volume 2, I think they delivered that. And I think in Rebels Season 4, they have been heavily delivering that, with Hera, finally we got to see X-Wings in battle for the first time on Rebels, all kinds of this other stuff. Like, you've got, I think that's what excited everybody about the second half of Rogue One, because it's like, fuck yes, here we go, starfighter battles, let's do this. And yeah, I mean, that is so quintessential to what makes Star Wars exciting that a lot of other science fiction doesn't do, because a lot of other science fiction has to do with big lumbering starships. Nothing wrong with that, but it's a different, it's a different recipe than what comprises Star Wars. And of course, George Lucas himself, made it very clear that he based a lot of what he did in Star Wars, a lot of the war aspects of Star Wars, on World War II, and like these World War II, dogfights, and all of this. And it shows, it really shows. And it really, it's amazing how much more you feel like you're watching Star Wars as soon as the starfighter battle happens, even inside of a 3-minute animated short, or within, say, a season of a Star Wars show like Rebels in Season 4. So kudos for Lucasfilm for, I think, figuring out just what exactly is the recipe that makes people feel like, oh yeah, motherfucker, I'm watching Star Wars. So right on as far as that goes. All right, so let's shift gears, and I want to talk about something that doesn't get talked about enough. There's a couple Star Wars podcasts that'll do it, but it's really not covered enough by the Star Wars community in general. And that is the comic books, which historically, comic books have been a real strong suit for Star Wars, especially during Dark Horse's run, even towards the end. Like, it was amazing just for how many years, nay decades, that, in fact, I mean, like, it was over 2 decades, that Dark Horse kept the Star Wars comic books so exciting, so refreshing, and so invigorating. Even there, and it's kind of like, it kind of sucks that, like, what happened when Disney bought out Lucasfilm, from George Lucas. Dark Horse was really, I mean, they were on a tear. They had their new title, which they had just called Star Wars, which had been running for a little over a year, and it was some of the best Star Wars comic books ever. And then, Disney owns Marvel, so when Disney bought Star Wars, they transferred everything over to Marvel. Of course, there's Darth Maul, Son of Dathomir, which Dark Horse got to run out. That's canon, but otherwise, everything else that the Dark Horse had done for that 20 plus years, was no longer canon. And so, well, anyway, that's why we have Legends, I guess. But Star Wars comics are so important because Star Wars is, as much, like I said, starfighter battles are huge. But also, it's such a visual medium, far more, and I've said this many, many times, Star Wars does not work well really as novels. I mean, it can pull it off, and sometimes it can be really good, but it's not as strong as it can be when it's a visual medium, like, say, animated shows, movies, or comic books, particularly, and things like this. It just somehow it really fits. And maybe it's because of the starfighter battles. Maybe starfighter battles are just really hard to write, and maybe that's why most science fiction doesn't have a whole ton of starfighters involved, because it's such a pain in the ass to kind of like describe. And he moves 65 degrees to the to starboard, and I don't know, whatever. I don't know how that would work, but regardless. The comic books for Star Wars have been, admittedly, under Disney / Marvel's tenure, have been kind of touch and go. There's been some golden moments, like Lando was probably, and I think still, the best comic book series that they've put out, and that was a limited series. But it's been very touch and go. That's the one that everybody kind of points to where, holy fuck, that was awesome. But anyway, so a few and I've been wanting to review these for a while. that I want to get into. There's the Captain Phasma series that I want to talk about. There's Screaming Citadel, which was kind of a crossover series between the main Star Wars comic, Star Wars Ongoing, and the Dr. Aphra comic. And then there's also the new, I guess the Volume 2. They really should have given it another name. Then there's the new Darth Vader series, which is right now is up to issue 8, that I'd like to talk about as well. I mean, there's Poe Dameron and all that stuff, which that's actually a fairly solid series. Like I haven't read an issue of that I didn't enjoy, but I'm not going to review that at the moment. So anyway, let's start off with Screaming Citadel. I think this was Screaming Citadel, which went a few issues, went like 6 issues or so. Again, it was a crossover between Dr. Aphra's series, and which is a very touch and go series, and the Star Wars Ongoing. So you get all the big characters. You get Sana Starros, or who you thought was Sana Solo. Chewbacca's there. You're getting Han Solo, Princess Leia, Luke Skywalker. And you have, of course, the Dr. Aphra characters, that being Dr. Aphra herself. What is it? Shelley? Was that her name? Shelley Aphra. And her 2 droids, which are just dynamite characters that Marvel came up with. That being 000, which is kind of like an evil version of C-3PO, and BT, which is like an evil, heavily armed. In fact, 000 calls it a Death Star on wheels. Evil version of R2-D2, which is a lot of fun. I love those 2 characters. They're so wild. And another character that's common in the Dr. Aphra series is and that's Black Cranston. Cranston. However the fuck they say his name. But that giant gray Wookiee that is really badass. So Screaming Citadel that's the cast of characters, and they are going to this planet where there is this queen that can supposedly, like you really want to, one night out of the year, she hosts people on her planet, which has a very unpronounceable name. In fact, Dr. Aphra makes a joke about it, saying don't try to pronounce it. And you go to, the idea is that you go to her planet. She likes to collect unique life forms. Okay. And so everybody goes there and they bring her unique life forms from around the galaxy to curry her favor and maybe get some kind of favor from her, perhaps. And particularly what happens is Dr. Aphra wants to, if you read the Dr. Aphra series before, she finds this immortal Jedi crystal, or this Jedi that's supposedly encoded into a crystal named Rur from anyway, there's a whole story around that I'm not going to get into, but she wants to talk to this Jedi more. And she hears somehow that the queen of the Screaming Citadel, we'll just say that she can, she can somehow unlock, or has the ability to probably unlock this crystal so she can talk to this Jedi, Rur. It's not like a holocron, but it's kind of close. So anyway, she needs to bring some kind of unique life form. And so what she figures out to do is, of course, after her dealings with Darth Vader and Darth Vader's hunt for Luke Skywalker, she figures out that Luke Skywalker is a Jedi, or a Jedi in training of some kind anyway. And she wants to bring this this highly force sensitive human being, that being Luke, to the Queen as kind of the, he's going to be her donation so that she can unlock this crystal with the Jedi Rur in it. And, it's a fun series. What really stands out on this, and it ends up becoming a mission where, Han and Sana which Sana Solo has actually become a very cool character, by the way. One of my big issues with the Star Wars Ongoing comic was the first 10 or 12 was all about, it had this dumb subplot where supposedly Han Solo was married to this woman named Sana Solo. And it was it wasn't a dumb subplot. It just went way too long. They spent way too many issues, and it was so frustrating to fucking read. It's look, just fucking tell us what the fuck is going on. It's so crazy. And so for a while, I actually didn't like the character of Sana so much. Now I actually really like her. And in fact, Screaming Citadel makes it abundantly clear that Sana is bisexual, which I think is great. Because she has, she mentions an affair. It's made very apparent that she had an affair with someone who we also got hints at in her series that she was lesbian, that being Dr. Aphra, because she makes that one comment to the that female Imperial commander. Now we know San is bisexual. We know that Dr. Aphra herself is at least lesbian. She might be, some of the comments she made towards Luke, she might actually be bisexual herself. I think this is great. Like, I think this is fantastic that Star Wars is openly putting this stuff in there, even though, yeah, it's not necessarily happening in the movies where it would be really impressive, but it's happening in the comic books, and, those are pretty premier formats for Star Wars, like I said, and so, I'm glad that it's there. But regardless, so Sana was pretty cool in this, and Han and Leia and everybody, becomes a part of the whole story. Now, this is very much, and I've talked about Screaming Citadel for a while. Obviously, it took, 3-4 months for it to come to completion. This is very much like, there's in the gaming world, there's what's called Metroidvania, which means that a game is like Metroid or Castlevania. This is Star Wars-vania, okay? Where it's Star Wars and a mixture, obviously, of Castlevania. And that is not a bad thing, because the style of Castlevania, look, there's a reason Castlevania has like its own kind of game genre named after it, not just franchise, genre, because it's so memorable. It works so well, kind of the haunting but almost simplistic nature of it and everything, and mixing in that visual style anyway, and that feel into Star Wars. At first people were wondering, hey, is this actually going to work? First issue was all right, but is this can we pull this off? Oh, they pulled it off. And I thought it was so cool. It was so much fun to have kind of this vampiric sort of character, which is what you find out the Queen is in the Screaming Citadel. And there's like this biological, like this parasite creature that even the Empire hates, that becomes a big part of the story and everything. And this was kind of unique too. So there's this parasite, kind of reminds you of the creature from Ceti Alpha 5, the worm from Star Trek II, the Wrath of Khan, where this creature can take over your mind effectively. And I was amazed. Like, this was getting pretty dangerous, I thought. This was very bold of them to do. They had moments where this, parasite that could take over a mind actually went on Han Solo. I would have never expected them to do that. Han Solo was a bad guy was a villain in this series for, 2-3 issues of it. And I was shocked. Like, I was like, wow, you're really good. I mean, because the way they were describing the dangers of this parasite, of the mind controlling parasite, which I love those kind of stories. And anyway, like that mind control kind of parasite thing. Not just in Star Wars, like across the board. So it was cool to have that in Star Wars as well. Granted, bringing in that kind of genre that is sort of a subgenre of its own, niche genre, I should say. But like, I was just, the way it was described, once a person gets this thing on them, it's fucking over. And, for them to do it to Han Solo, you're like, well, we know Han Solo is going to be fine, but it was just amazing that they went there, that they took the moment to let Han Solo be a bad guy for a while. And I thought that was really well done. The series was hilarious. It was laugh out loud funny at points, especially with the two characters I mentioned, kind of the evil droids, or not kind of, they are, they love being called it too, evil droids, 000 and BT. They were so funny. I mean, they were just so goddamn funny. It was a great series. And I loved getting that different feel, that different vibe in Star Wars. One of Star Wars' strengths, outside of comic books, obviously that's a strength for it, but one of Star Wars' strengths really has always been the fact that it's a mishmash. Like, it's taking all of the best parts of pop culture, of popular, of storytelling and everything, and all these different genres and whatever, and just blending them to, tossing them into a blender and making the greatest protein shake of all time, right? That's really one of the strengths of Star Wars. And I felt like Screaming Citadel was one of the first times in a long time where Star Wars really took that leap. Probably the last time I felt that leap really happened with Star Wars was it Coruscant Nights? There was a series of Dash Rendar, which I love Dash Rendar. Shadows of the Empire, fuck yeah, baby, all the way. It was like a 2-book series, I think it was. It was Coruscant Nights. It was towards the end of, just before Disney ended up buying it out. But they went with a full-on kind of Blade Runner, neo-noir, film noir kind of style. They were novels, of course, but it worked. It fit. And because that style lends itself well to the written word, actually. So it was so nice to see some experimentation with that. Of course, there was another one before Coruscant Nights. There was Death Troopers, right, where Star Wars kind of got into the zombie realm, which that was cool too. Like, I thought that was, and they even had another one. It was a Red Plague or something that came after that. Anyway, like I like it when Star Wars tries to get into other genres, and this was, a slight attempt at horror, definitely playing off of a Castlevania style, and I think it fucking worked. I thought it was brilliant. I'd probably, if there's a top 5, say, storylines or a miniseries, because Screaming Citadel also had its own one-shots within it. It wasn't just like, it was a mixture between, like, it was Dr. Aphra number 12, and I forget what series numbers it was, because I read it over again in the trade paperback format. But it kind of stands on its own, and I would put it, like up with Lando and, those kind of series. I think it totally fits in with that series, or fits in as, like, right now in the top 5 storylines that have been told in Star Wars comics, in my opinion, maybe even number 2. I thought it was that great. It was that much fun. Artistry is phenomenal. All of that. It really delivered and fired on all cylinders. I hope to see Star Wars experiment a lot more with that again in the future. So, all right, next comic book series. Let's talk about The Last Jedi. Let's talk about Darth Vader. So Darth Vader, I'll call it Darth Vader Volume 2, because we had a previous Darth Vader that went for a 24-issue run that was pretty good. It had its highs and lows. The Vader Down series was, I don't know, some people liked it. I kind of felt like it was a little bit of a low. But anyway, so Volume 2 of Darth Vader, this started a few months ago, and we talked about it on Star Wars Update. Like, the first 3 issues we covered. They're up to issue 8 right now. And, at first, like, right out of the gate, it was phenomenal, even though there's a lot of debate over, because it starts right off. So Volume 2 Darth Vader is a prequel to A New Hope, and it takes place well before Volume 1 of Darth Vader. It fits in, it takes place like right after Episode 3. In fact, it opens up at the scene where Darth Vader becomes Darth Vader. He does this whole no, all that stuff. And there was a lot of controversy over the fact that it seemed like in the comic books, the scene went a little bit differently. Like, the Emperor gets slammed against the wall when he kind of breaks out, when Vader, does his Frankenstein thing and breaks out of his chair, or the platform that he's on. And, a lot of people are like, well, you're trying to make this moment cooler than maybe you felt George Lucas had done it, which I didn't mind how George Lucas did it, whatever. Yeah, but it came out straight. It came out hitting hard. It really did, right from the first issue, the first couple issues, and Palpatine, one of the beauties of this entire series is that you're getting such an insight into how Palpatine thinks. And I think that's what's making it very enjoyable. This is probably the best running comic for Star Wars right now, as far as titles go. Right now we have Poe Dameron, we have Star Wars Ongoing, we have Dr. Aphra. There's Star Wars Adventures, whatever. There's mini series going, like the Mace Windu series is going right now, which I'm enjoying. And there's some others, but as far as like a regular ongoing series, Darth Vader Volume 2 is definitely the best one running, like easily. If you wanted to start reading Star Wars comics right now, this is where you start, in my opinion. It's that solid, and it gives so much insight, including kind of covering some of the little things that some novels, like the Ahsoka novel and others, had hinted at, like how do the Sith make their lightsabers? They make the crystals bleed and all that. They talk about that, which I don't mind that. I think that's fine. And there's a lot of other things, that you learn about the Sith, and that you learn about how, like I said, how Palpatine thinks. And I've said this is another major point, kind of abstract point about what makes Star Wars work. The most exciting stories, the most exciting episodes, the most exciting whatever. The thing that always makes you take Star Wars a lot more serious, and what really brings it to fore, is whenever you encounter the Emperor. Not Chancellor Palpatine, not Senator Palpatine, Emperor Palpatine. When he gets on the scene, it's huge, and he is so all over this Darth Vader series. It's really been enjoyable. And right now they're on kind of the second storyline within Volume 2 Darth Vader, where he is going after Jocasta Nu, who is you see her, I think, in Episode 2, where she is the kind of the librarian at the Jedi Temple. She survived. And it's been a pretty cool story. Like, I've actually dug it, and where she's trying to create. I'm curious to see where it's going to go, because you find out she's trying to create like a new school for Jedi. And again, this is all happening, between Episode 3 and Episode 4. And I don't know, something about that like feels very much like Isaac Asimov's Foundation, and I think it's really working. And Vader is really badass in these in this entire series. Like, he's not slow, he's not lumbering, very badass. There's points where he's downright funny in the way that he interacts with people. And you're really getting the early days of the Empire. I mean, like, there's issues where within the series so far where, you find out that, well, the clones know that they're going to end up getting replaced, that they're on retirement duty pretty much right now. So you get a really great hint into the time between episode 3 and, I guess more particularly I should say, between episode 3 and Rogue One. And well before Rebels as well. Like, it takes place right after the prequels. And that's the other thing I'm enjoying about it too, is that it's paying a lot of nice homage to the prequels. And it's making it fit within kind of, what more people recognize the original trilogy, kind of the time of the Galactic Empire. It's making it fit in very well with that. And so, yeah, it's been a tremendous series. There's great action. There's this point where, I mean, the first I think it's called The Chosen One, which is the first storyline within Darth Vader Volume 2. He's tasked with, Vader's tasked with by the Emperor to get a lightsaber. And in fact, they make it very clear that, Sith don't make lightsabers, they take them. And so he needs to find a Jedi to take his lightsaber and make it bleed. And so you get that entire storyline, and he takes on this really badass Jedi who's off on, what do they call it, like a Barash vow, where a Jedi no longer, just goes off to be with the Force and doesn't get involved with Jedi politics or anything like that, or the Jedi Order in any way. And there's this, Jedi Master Infillah, and Infillah is just like this, like muscular, almost reminds me of how they described Jorah C'baoth in Heir to the Empire, in the Thrawn trilogy from Timothy Zahn back in the Expanded Universe days. It's a really, really cool battle. I mean, like tremendous action going on with lightsabers. Very cool. I wouldn't mind if they ever put this in some kind of animated form. I think it would work. So anyway, yeah, Darth Vader Volume 2, you definitely want to check that out. If you want to get a lot of interesting insights into the Sith, what was going on between episodes 3 and Rogue One, or between episodes 3 and Rebels even, I guess I could say, you get it. And Darth Vader is tremendous, and the Emperor is tremendous in it. Like, you're just, they're so cool. I love it. There's like a million quotes from it that I just, I enjoy the hell out of it. And it really gives you a look into the mindset, and it actually reconfirms what you find out sort of as a side note in the novel Tarkin by James Luceno. In that, you find out, why is Palpatine doing what he's doing? What's his end goal? Does he just want to conquer the universe, or what's the deal? And what he really wants to do is he wants to be able to literally shape through the Force, shape the universe, and he has to have total control, right down to the, ticking of the clocks effectively, to be able to do that. That point gets reinforced in this series, which was also nice, because if it seems like they almost said it as an afterthought. They spent maybe a paragraph talking about it, when it's the crux of the Star Wars saga as we know it. Why is the Emperor doing what the fuck he's doing? And, what's his motivation, right? And so, you get that bolstered in Volume 2 as well. Now, let's move on to the other short series that came out. And that is Phasma, Captain Phasma, specifically, Journey to the Last Jedi, Captain Phasma. So it's part of that. Now, what I thought was interesting was that the guts of Lucasfilm to, at the same time, because this more or less started back in September. There's only 4 issues to it, and the series is done. The trade paperback's already out. For Disney, or for Lucasfilm, in September, they released, on Force Friday, they released the Phasma novel, which we reviewed on previous Star Wars updates, which wasn't the best novel in the world. Okay. They released the Phasma novel, and then within the same date, they released the Captain Phasma comic book. And I was like, boy, that's going to be really confusing. But now I don't think it's confusing. Now I think it makes sense how they did this, because events that happen. So the 4-issue Captain Phasma comic book series and the novel Phasma, again, it doesn't have the captain prefix in front of it. They are kissing cousins. One makes a whole hell of a lot more sense when you have the other. So when you read the Phasma book, you find out about Phasma's history, right? When you read the Captain Phasma comic book, you find out how is she, how did she survive the events of The Force Awakens? How did she get away from Starkiller Base and all that? In the first issue, I reviewed the first issue previously. It was hilarious because like in 15 minutes, it shows how she gets the hell out of there and everything. And then the rest of the comic book series is her trying to hunt down this guy named Silas, who knows that she's the one that lowered the shield on Starkiller Base and that she's the problem. And so it's her hunting him down. Now, there's cool things that happen within this. You get the introduction to the kind of the Imperial version of the BB-8 models, which will be somewhat of a part of The Last Jedi. They've been, kind of touted heavily by Star Wars media over the past few months. So you get their little black rolling droids. It's cool that you find out there are TIE pilots that are women in the First Order. We got that. You find that out in Star Wars Rebels, that women can be TIE fighter pilots and everything. But I mean, that's important. A lot of this stuff's important to bring up because I think beforehand, you knew the Rebels had female pilots, but I don't think, in the expanded universe, yeah, they would talk about it, that would happen. But like in the movies and all that, and in the more prominent media, you never really got the hint that there were, women underneath those helmets. And now you're finding out, absolutely, yes, there is. Like even stormtroopers, when you read the first Battlefront novel, not the Battlefront 2 novel, that there's female stormtroopers. So it was kind of cool to get that, and it gives you more of, like in the Captain Phasma comic, it just hammers more home with the point that they were making in the Phasma novel, that this is somebody who works completely for herself. She is all about survival. In fact, she kind of becomes, she crash lands on this planet that's just tearing itself apart. And there's these survivors on there that remind her very much of her own life before she joined the First Order, which is covered in the novel Phasma. She pretty much, like, spoiler alerts, she leaves all these people to their death. Like, she raises these people up as an army just so she can kill this one guy, Silas, who knows the truth about her. And then, this whole time she has this TIE pilot with her, and she's this really cool character that she has with her. She ends up killing her at the end. Like, I mean, she's just absolutely fucking ruthless, and she's all about one person. I mean, she's such an egoist, right? I'm kind of kidding. Captain Phasma is all about Phasma. That's all she is. But like memories and things and flashbacks that happen in the comic book make a lot more sense and have a lot more depth after you read the Phasma novel. So I think those two things getting released next to each other was perfect because they are complementary pieces. And now I actually I appreciate and I respect my time reading the Phasma novel, well, listening to it. Now that I've read, now that we have this 4-issue, story arc of Captain Phasma. Yeah, I mean, they're really building up this character. Like I said in previous Star Wars updates, she's obviously going to be the kind of the new Boba Fett. Like that's sort of the idea. And I think that that's fine. I think that that's cool. So I think the Captain Phasma comic book series is well worth reading. You don't have to read the Phasma novel. It's one of the weakest novels in the new canon, but you'll definitely appreciate it more if you read that before you read the Captain Phasma comic book series. So, all right, I think that covers the 3 comic book series that I wanted to talk about for this month. In December Star Wars Update, we're going to cover a whole bunch of other ones like Mace Windu, and we'll talk more about what's happening in the Star Wars ongoing comic, as well as a bigger review of Poe Dameron, because I think it's going to make sense more after The Last Jedi comes out. So, all right, our last topic for this month's Star Wars Update. Boy, is this one loaded or what? Our last topic is the major book. There's been at least a book a month that has been coming out for Star Wars, it seems. I don't know if January, I don't know of anything slated to come out in January. In December, we have the Canto Bight novel, which I already have pre-ordered, and I will review that in the December Star Wars Update. Is it February when we get... Or maybe it was in April. They released the cover art. Oh, holy crap. I creamed my jeans. They released the cover art for the new Thrawn novel that Timothy Zahn's writing called, Allegiances or Alliances or whatever, where it's going to be Thrawn and Darth Vader working together. I can't deal. That's so fucking exciting to me. Holy shit. Anyway, obviously I'll be talking about that when that comes out, because right now, still my favorite Star Wars novel of the new canon is Thrawn. That came out by Timothy Zahn back in April of this year, of 2017. So anyway, Legends of Luke Skywalker is the book that came out for October. Well, it wasn't the only one, right? Because we also had that terrible, or very strange anyway, from a certain point of view, which I reviewed in last month's Star Wars update. So Legends of Luke Skywalker, this is technically a junior novel, and it's kind of an anthology. It has a bunch of little stories that are tied together by these kids who are like young people anyway, who are the crew aboard, not necessarily a slave ship, but kind of a labor ship of some kind. And they're telling all these different stories about Luke Skywalker. Now, some of these stories are really cool. Some of the things that Luke says in it are amazing, like saying that, you know, he encounters these people who, he's like, you know, you got to join the rebellion. You know, if you just let evil, if you just let the evil that is the Empire, if you just let evil exist and you don't do anything about it, you're really, like, you're on the side of evil if you do that. But then he gets humbled by these people who, you know, they have a different term for the Force, but they're Force sensitive people. I think they call it like the Wave or something, or not the Wave. They call it the not the Ocean. Anyway, whatever. They have a very specific name for it that the Tide. I think they call it the Tide. I knew it was something to do with water. But anyway, you know, he learns from them well, let me tell you stories. He learns from them that, spoiler alerts, he learns from them that, well, actually, you know, not engaging in the war and having a planet, creating a place where peace, and good can thrive is just as much a stalwart against evil than anything else. And I read that. I was like, yes, exactly. Because that's such a big part of my own personal philosophy. Not that I'm a pacifist, but, you know, creating, like, you know, islands of sanity, I think is such an important thing to do. So anyway, like, I thought that was really nice, to kind of for him to get that perspective. And that's kind of the bulk of what you learn throughout the novel, throughout the different stories within the novel, is that Luke is learning, like, all of these different aspects of the Force, and he's learning all of these different kind of philosophical perspectives that we'll probably see come to fruition in The Last Jedi. There is an amazing, it's kind of the first story. There's, like, the first story in it takes place during the Battle of Jakku, which is, you know, somewhere a bit before The Force Awakens. And in it, you find out that, like, Luke, there's this point where Luke, using Force lightning, brings down, like, 2 Star Destroyers. He just, like, wrecks these Star Destroyers completely on his own. You know, it's kind of like, if you remember the trailer and one of the opening cinematics for the Force Unleashed games, with Starkiller, the character of Starkiller, where he brings down an entire Star Destroyer. Luke does this, like, with Force lightning, and it's really, like, it's such an intense thing to read. You can't believe you're hearing it. And it was, you know, like I said, it's pretty much the first story in there, and it was, or first or second, and it was such an awesome moment, and it was so badass. In fact, even the Star Wars show, which is the little weekly news show that they do, an interview show they do on the Star Wars YouTube channel. At the end of one of the recent Star Wars shows, they even did an animatic, not fully animated, but an animatic kind of storyboard version of that tale, of that particular legend, okay, with Luke Skywalker. And I think it's because, everybody's like, holy shit, that's awesome. And it was so cool. Here's the problem. All of these, I don't know, there's 5, 6, 7, 8 stories or whatever within it. All of these little stories, the claim goes is that they're legends, like, and they're being retold by a narrator that may not have this whole story, or maybe getting parts of the story wrong. So we don't know that actually happened. We don't know that anything in the book actually happened. There's one story in particular that I thought, and it was one of the earlier ones that I thought was pretty funny, where it's this person completely, like, fabricating. They're acting like a 9/11 truther in the book, and just coming up with all these conspiracies and everything, and, you know, how Luke and all them, they really weren't rebels, and they really, you know, Luke wasn't really a Jedi. He was kind of this huckster, and, you know, all this different stuff. And it's a very funny story, but it sets the tone for the book to where you're like, well, is everything I'm hearing accurate? Because obviously this person didn't get their shit accurate. But personally, I thought that was funny, and the way that it kind of, you know, picks on conspiracy theories, I thought was enjoyable. But the fact that the whole book, like, I buy these books, I consume them because I consider them part of, the larger order of the Star Wars universe. And I want to know that as well as I know, actual reality that I exist within. Okay. I want to have it that much surrounded. It's important to me. It allows me to, communicate accurately and kind of glean at what's coming next, or, and it's all very inspiring to me, as a creator and writer myself. And for it to be potentially all bullshit, I think that's such a cop-out. And some, actually a great Sovereign Tech patron, made the point that this is becoming a very popular trope to do that, where it's like the uncertain narrator. And that even it's going well beyond Star Wars and all that. And yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel like I think it's intellectual laziness. Like, it really is. Like, this is just, okay, well, if we just say, if we turn it into a campfire story, it doesn't have to be 100% accurate. So we can give the story group a day off or whatever, or we could come up with all kinds of cool shit that are really interesting to read. But then we can say, yeah, but that didn't really happen. The Force doesn't really work that way, blah, blah, blah. It's such crap. I was really so disappointed in that. And this kind of highlights the point that I think we really have to get past with Star Wars. And I'm hoping that The Last Jedi is when we finally get past it. The amount of secrecy and the amount of like hands off that creative teams are within Lucasfilm are being kind of required to be. Like, look, as soon as Disney took over, people knew what they wanted. When we heard there was going to be an episode 7, 8, 9, we want Luke Skywalker. We want Luke Skywalker out there kicking ass, doing his thing. We want to find out what happened after Return of the Jedi. We don't really want to, I mean, it's cool. It's amazing what's happening 30 years after Return of the Jedi, like with The Force Awakens and the new trilogy in 7, 8, 9. Okay. But we want to know what happened after Return of the Jedi. We want to see Luke Skywalker doing the business. That's what we've been wanting since 1983. It's what we've always wanted, and Disney won't do it. They're too fucking scared to reveal what, I don't know, and I'm just hoping that whatever this big secret, this big turn that even Mark Hamill himself has been going nuts over, that Rian Johnson came up with or whatever for the Force, like, please, after The Last Jedi, let the creators, let the novelists, let the comic books, let the writers, let them go nuts with the time frame between Return of the Jedi or just the time frame after Return of the Jedi and before The Force Awakens, when Luke is young and he can go and he can go kick some ass. Give us that, please. Holy shit. That's really all we've ever wanted. And that's why I think most Star Wars fans, as much as they may love anything that comes out, there's always that tinge of disappointment. Just a little bit, because we all know what we secretly want is we want Jedi Luke Skywalker, powerful, young Jedi Luke Skywalker, post Return of the Jedi, wearing triple black, going out there with the green lightsaber and doing the business. That's what we want. Give it to us already. Holy shit. Enough with the secrets. I don't give a shit about the secrets. Like, I'm going to go see The Last Jedi. You don't have to have any mysteries. You don't have to have any surprises. I'm going to see it no matter what. Give us some Luke Skywalker, and not bullshit where it's like, well, maybe that happened, maybe that didn't happen. It's a legend, you can't really trust these narrators. Is that exactly what Luke did? Maybe he didn't. Stop, Lucasfilm. Stop the fucking tease. You can build up everything else after the fact. Give us Luke Skywalker. Real Luke Skywalker. Triple black, green lightsaber Luke Skywalker. Give it to us. Oh, man. I mean, it's enough to drive you nuts, because then suddenly when you think you get it, and it's a shame. Like, I listened to the entire book of Legends of Luke Skywalker, and I was like, boy, that was kind of fun. Like, I mean, some of that was stupid, but a lot of it was a lot of fun, and to experience that with Luke Skywalker, and then for it to officially come out from Lucasfilm themselves saying, yeah, but it's Legends. It's not actually what he did. Like, or it may not be exactly what he did. Like, there's parts that could be wrong about it. It's just like, oh, well, then why the fuck did I read it if that's not what happened? Like that. I think that's so cheap. It's such a cop-out. It's such bullshit. Don't ever do that again. Just like, don't do October was a bad month. It was a really bad month for a lot of Star Wars media and for a lot of Star Wars news, frankly, because, I mean, wasn't that when we were finding out that, how Trevorrow got fired from episode 9, there's the bad stuff, Han Solo news was kind of up in the air. The Solo movie news is up in the air. There was like a lot of ugly shit. And then the books, from a certain point of view, in Legends of Luke Skywalker, took Star Wars canon, or not canon, in directions that I think were just stupid. Like really, really stupid. We talked about from a certain point of view in the last Star Wars update. If you want to hear about that, go listen to it. There's no need. There's no fucking need for that goddamn, Dianaga, that creature that was in the trash compactor in episode 4, for that to be some kind of like Force user. What in the goddamn fuck? Yeah, you're wasting. The problem is you're wasting my time with petty and honestly stupid shit. And you can say value subjective. Fine. No, I think it's stupid shit. And it's not just like if I was a kid, I would have said, he's a Force user? Well, that's fucking dumb. That's how I would have felt about it. Even as a young guy, really. So anyway, I don't know how much more there is to say on that. I mean, the book is enjoyable if you can get past the fact that what you're reading may not mean anything at all. And it's such a pity, because that Star Destroyer those Star Destroyers coming down, man, that was fucking awesome. Then I guess it's worthwhile, but anyway, so that's it. I think that's it for this week, this month's Star Wars update. We covered a lot. And of course, December, as has been the past few years, is going to be huge, because we're going to get The Last Jedi. I will be doing, like I said, I will be dedicating the episode of Sovereign Tech after the 14th of December. I will be dedicating, as usual, half the episode of the Prime episode to a review of Star Wars The Last Jedi. I do that with every Star Wars movie, and we will not break that tradition. So that's going to be a great time. But then there's going to be so much else going on in December to review and to talk about, a lot of different books and comics and everything to dive into. And then I think Rebels comes back in January, I think. So we'll be able to finish up season 4 for the January Star Wars update, of course. I mean, just a lot of exciting stuff going on. So also you will get your Wednesday Q&A will come out later today. And also we will have the Star Trek update will come out tomorrow, tomorrow being November 30th, 2017. So you are getting in all of your monthly episodes. You got it, baby. Anyway, that's it for the November Star Wars update. Woo! Of course, if you ever have questions about Star Wars or something, whatever, like, message me. Let me know. And, especially on Patreon. And I could talk about it on the Star Wars update. But I will see you, baby, on the other side.